The council chamber aboard Nexus Station floated in the darkness of space like a glass jewel. Inside, representatives from 17 different species argued about borders and trade routes. They had been arguing for 3 hours now, and nothing had changed. Councillor Vrek adjusted his long robes and tapped the table with one of his 4 hands. The Altharian was old, even by his species' standards. He had lived for almost 400 years and thought he had seen everything the galaxy could offer. "The Krill Empire demands too much," Vrek said in the common galactic language. His translator device hummed softly at his throat. "You cannot claim an entire sector simply because your military is larger." Admiral Tovan stood on the opposite side of the chamber. The Krill commander was built like a walking tank, all muscle and armor plating. His red eyes glowed with barely controlled anger. "We claim what we can hold. This has always been the way of things." The other counselors murmured among themselves. Some agreed with Vrek, others thought Tovan was right. In the end, it did not matter much. The galaxy operated on a simple principle. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak learned to accept it. Vrek sighed and called for a brief rest period. As the counselors filed out to their various chambers, he stayed behind and looked out the massive viewing window. Stars stretched out in every direction, beautiful and cold. His assistant, a younger Altharian named Mekta, approached quietly. "Counselor, the historical archives you requested are ready?" Yes," Vrek said. "I was reading about the extinct species last night. Humans, I believe they were called." Mekta nodded. "A cautionary tale. They expanded too quickly, angered too many neighbors. Their homeworld was destroyed about 300 years ago." "Such a waste," Vrek mused. "They showed promise in the early days, clever species, but they lacked the wisdom to survive among the greater powers." Before Mekta could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. In the command center 3 levels down, chaos erupted. Screens flashed red. Sensor operators shouted conflicting reports. The station's defense systems automatically went to high alert. "Unknown vessel detected at sector edge," one operator called out. "How did it get so close without detection?" the duty officer demanded. "I don't know, sir. It just appeared on our screens 10 seconds ago." Admiral Tovan burst into the command center, still fastening his armor plates. "Report? Single vessel, unknown configuration. Mass readings are inconsistent. Energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." Tovan pushed the operator aside and looked at the screen himself. There, at the edge of sensor range, was something that should not exist. A ship appeared. From nowhere, its hull reflecting the distant starlight in strange ways. "Magnify," Tovan ordered. The image grew larger. The vessel was sleek, almost elegant, but there was something predatory about its design. Smooth curves hid what were obviously weapon ports. The hull was dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. There were no visible engines, no obvious weak points. "Size estimate?" Tovan asked. "Approximately 800 meters long." "Medium cruiser class by our standards," Tovan relaxed slightly. A single cruiser was no threat to Nexus Station, which was protected by his entire fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, and countless support vessels orbited the station at all times. "Hail them," he commanded. The communications officer worked his console. "Channel open, Admiral." For a moment there was only static. Then a voice came through, speaking perfect galactic standard with only a slight accent. "Nexus Station, this is Commander Dayhayan of the Terra United Warship Indomitable. We come in peace and request permission to dock." The command center went silent. Every eye turned to Admiral Tovan. "Terra?" the Admiral said slowly. "That name means nothing to me." "Sir," one of the younger officers spoke up hesitantly. "Terra was the human name for their homeworld." "But that's impossible. The humans have been extinct for centuries." Tovan's eyes narrowed. "This is some kind of trick. A scam, perhaps. Someone found an old database and is trying to fool us." "Nexus Station," the voice continued. "I understand you may find this hard to believe. My species has been absent from galactic affairs for approximately 300 of your standard years. We are returning now to establish diplomatic relations. Back in the council chamber, Vrek had returned along with all the other representatives. They stared at the main view screen in disbelief as the mysterious ship slowly approached. "This cannot be real," Vrek whispered. "The humans are gone, we all know this." But even as he spoke, a video feed opened. The face that appeared on screen was unmistakably human. Commander Dae-Hyan looked to be in his mid-40s, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples. His uniform was crisp and military in style. Behind him, other humans worked at various stations. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," Dae-Hyan said calmly. "I am aware that our return is unexpected. 3 centuries ago, humanity made the decision to withdraw from galactic society. We had our reasons, which I am prepared to explain. But first, I formally request permission to dock and present our credentials as representatives of Terra United." Admiral Toven's face appeared in a smaller window on the screen. "This is Admiral Toven, Commander of Nexus Station Defense Forces. Your claim is extraordinary and unverified. I cannot permit an unknown vessel to dock at this station." Dae-Hyan nodded as if he had expected this response. "I understand your caution, Admiral. However, I should inform you that we have no hostile intentions. We simply wish to talk." "Talk from a distance, then," Toven replied coldly. "You say you are human. Prove it. Transmit biological data, historical records, anything that confirms your identity." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Lieutenant Hana turned from her navigation console. She was young, perhaps in her late 20s, with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Commander, they're moving their fleet into attack formation around us." Dae-Hyan glanced at the tactical display without concern. "Let them position themselves. It makes no difference." He turned back to the communications screen. "Admiral Toven, I will transmit the data you request. But I must ask you to understand something important." "And what is that?" Toven demanded. "Humanity did not go extinct," Dae-Hyan said quietly. "We chose to disappear. We had excellent reasons for that choice. And in the 300 years since we vanished, we have been very, very busy." The data package arrived at Nexus Station seconds later. Genetic samples, historical records, cultural databases, all of it checked against the archived information about humans from centuries ago. Every test came back positive. This was real. Vrek felt something cold settle in his chest. The humans were back. And if they had been hiding for 3 centuries, what had they been doing all that time? "Admiral," one of Toven's officers reported nervously, "our weapons are locked on the human vessel. But sir, their shields are unlike anything I've ever seen. I'm not sure our weapons would even scratch them." Toven's face darkened with anger. "One ship does not frighten me. Inform the human commander that he has 1 hour to leave this system peacefully, or we will open fire." On the Indomitable, Hana looked worried. "Commander, they're serious. 12 dreadnoughts have charged their main weapons." Dae-Hyan leaned back in his command chair and smiled slightly. It was not a pleasant smile. "Send a message to Admiral Toven. Tell him that we came here in peace and we intend to conduct our business peacefully. But also tell him this. If he fires on this vessel, he will learn exactly why humanity spent 300 years in silence. And it will be the last lesson he ever learns." The message was transmitted. In the command center, Admiral Toven read it and laughed harshly. "The human thinks he can threaten me with 1 cruiser. Prepare to fire on my command." Vrek watched all of this from the council chamber with growing dread. Something was very wrong. The human commander was too calm, too confident. A species did not hide for 3 centuries without reason. And they certainly did not return with a single ship unless they had something that made numbers irrelevant. "Wait," Vrek called out over the communication channel. "Admiral Toven, perhaps we should listen to what they have to say before we start a war." "There will be no war," Toven replied. "Just the destruction of 1 arrogant ship that doesn't know when it's outmatched." But Vrek noticed something that made his blood run cold. On the view screen, Commander Dae-Hyan was still smiling. And he had not raised his ship's shields or powered weapons. He simply sat there, waiting, as if 12 dreadnoughts pointing weapons at him was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson, and Nexus Station would be the classroom. Admiral Tovan stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Tyrannos. Captain Yuan, his second-in-command, waited for orders at the tactical station. The Krill fleet surrounded the human vessel in a perfect attack formation. It had taken them 20 minutes to position themselves, and during all that time, the Indomitable had simply floated in space, doing nothing. "Sir, the human ship still has not raised shields or powered weapons," Yuan reported. "Their energy readings are minimal. They're practically dormant." Tovan grunted. "Arrogance. They think we won't actually fire." "Show them their mistake. All ships, lock weapons. Prepare a full barrage on my command." Across the Krill fleet, weapon systems came online. Plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. Mass drivers loaded kilometer-long slugs of dense metal. Energy beams capable of cutting through starship hulls warmed up. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon on Nexus Station. Counselor Vrek watched with mounting horror. "This is madness. We don't even know what they want yet." "They want to intimidate us," Admiral Tovan's voice came through the speakers. "I will show them that the Krill Empire does not submit to intimidation." Inside the Indomitable, Lieutenant Hana's fingers moved across her navigation console with practiced ease. Numbers scrolled across her screens, calculations that would have taken other species hours to complete. She had them done in seconds. "Commander," she said calmly, "I have firing solutions for all 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, and 18 support vessels. Total time to plot, 4.3 seconds. Dehai nodded. "Well done, Lieutenant. Hold those solutions ready." He activated the communication channel again. "Admiral Tovan, I'm asking you one final time. Do not fire on this vessel. You will regret it." Tovan's laugh echoed through every speaker on the station. "You are surrounded by the most powerful fleet in 3 sectors. You have no shields, no active weapons, and you still make threats? I will enjoy watching your ship burn." He raised his hand. "All ships, fire at will." The space around Nexus Station erupted in light and violence. 70 warships unleashed everything they had at the single human vessel. Plasma bolts streaked through the void, each one hot enough to vaporize steel. Mass driver slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Energy beams lanced out, invisible until they hit their target. It was the kind of firepower that could crack a planet's crust, but Hana was ready. Her fingers danced across the controls, and the Indomitable's point defense systems activated. What the Krill called a devastating barrage, humans called a targeting exercise. Hundreds of small turrets emerged from the Indomitable's hull, each one guided by quantum-level targeting computers. They could track individual atoms if needed. Tracking incoming weapons was child's play. The plasma bolts were intercepted by precisely aimed counterfire. Each bolt was hit at exactly the right point to disperse its energy harmlessly. The mass driver slugs were met by gravitational deflectors that nudged them millimeters off course, enough to make them miss entirely. The energy beams hit the Indomitable shields and simply stopped. Their energy absorbed and dissipated into space. The entire barrage lasted exactly 12 seconds. When it was over, the Indomitable floated in space completely undamaged. Not a single shot had touched its hull. The ship looked exactly as it had before, pristine and untouched. In the command center of the Tyrannos, there was absolute silence. Captain Jiwan stared at her screens in disbelief. "Sir, no damage." "No damage at all. Their shields never even flickered." "Impossible," Tovan whispered. But the sensors did not lie. Somehow, the human ship had defeated the combined firepower of his entire fleet without apparent effort. On Nexus Station, the various alien species watching began to understand. The humans had not returned weak and desperate. They had returned strong. "Very strong," Daehyun's voice came over the communication channel again. It was still calm, still polite, but now there was an edge to it. "Admiral Tovan, you have fired upon a diplomatic vessel without provocation. Under the laws of warfare that govern this galaxy, I am now authorized to respond. I will do so with minimal force as a demonstration." "Minimal force?" Tovan shouted. You speak as if you have the advantage. You are one ship against my entire fleet. Yes, Daehyun agreed. One ship. That should be sufficient. Aboard the Indomitable, the weapons officer spoke quietly. Commander, targeting solution ready. Single lance, minimal power setting. Fire, Daehyun ordered. The Indomitable fired once. A single beam of coherent energy, focused to a point 1 centimeter wide, erupted from its main cannon. It was not their most powerful weapon. It was not even close. But it was enough. The beam crossed the distance to the Krill fleet in less than a second. It struck the first destroyer dead center, passed completely through it, exited from the other side, and continued. It hit the second destroyer behind the first, passed through that one too, and kept going. By the time it finally dissipated millions of kilometers away, it had bisected 3 destroyers like a hot knife through butter. The destroyers did not explode dramatically. They simply stopped working. Their hulls had been cut cleanly in half. Atmosphere vented into space. Emergency systems failed. The crews had perhaps 10 seconds to reach escape pods. Before the ships became cold metal tombs, the beam had been active for exactly 1.3 seconds. Every single weapon system in the Krill fleet immediately powered down. Every ship stopped moving. The galactic channels that had been full of chatter went completely silent. Even the background noise of 1,000 conversations across Nexus Station ceased. The galaxy forgot to breathe. Science Officer Minho, working at his station aboard the Indomitable, transmitted a data package to Nexus Station. It contained the technical analysis of what had just happened. The numbers were there for anyone to see and verify. The Indomitable could destroy the entire Krill fleet in less than 2 minutes. And that was if it worked slowly and carefully. Counselor Vrek read the analysis 3 times, hoping he had made a mistake. He had not. The mathematics were clear. The humans had developed weapons that made current galactic technology look like Stone Age tools in comparison. Dear gods, Vrek whispered. What did we do to them? Admiral Tovin's face appeared on the main screen. For the first time he looked uncertain. Human Commander, I acknowledge your superior firepower. The Krill fleet will stand down. A wise decision, Daehyun replied. I regret the loss of life aboard those 3 ships. Their deaths were unnecessary. I gave you multiple opportunities to avoid this outcome. Tovin said nothing. What could he say? He had attacked first. The humans had simply responded. Daehyun continued. I will now repeat my original request. We wish to dock at Nexus Station and speak with the Galactic Council. We have no hostile intentions toward any species here. We simply want to talk. This time, no one objected. Permission to dock was granted immediately. Pilot Sora, an elite fighter pilot stationed on Nexus Station, watched from her cockpit as the Indomitable slowly approached the docking bay. She had flown in 3 wars and considered herself fearless. But watching that ship move, knowing what it could do, she felt something she had not experienced in years. She felt afraid. The Indomitable docked with the gentlest of touches. The boarding ramp extended. And for the first time in 300 years, humans walked among aliens again. Commander Daehyun was the first to emerge, followed by a woman in different uniform. She looked to be in her 30s, with calm eyes and a diplomatic bearing. This was Ambassador Kyung-mi, though no one knew her title yet. Behind them came a security detail of 4 human soldiers, each carrying weapons that looked deceptively simple. After what they had just witnessed, no one wanted to know what those weapons could do. The receiving area was full of representatives from every species on the station. They had come to see the humans who had returned from extinction. They stared in silence as Daehyun walked forward. He stopped in front of Counselor Vrek and gave a slight bow, a gesture of respect. Counselor Vrek of the Altharian Commonwealth. I am Commander Daehyun of Terra United. It is an honor to meet you. Vrek found his voice with difficulty. The honor is mine, Commander. Though I confess your return has shocked us all. I imagine it has, Daehyun said. We have much to discuss. But first, allow me to introduce Ambassador Kyungmi. She will handle all diplomatic negotiations on behalf of Earth. Kyungmi stepped forward and smiled. It was a warm smile, genuine and friendly. "Hello," she said simply. "We've been gone a long time. We have a lot of catching up to do." Vrek looked at her, then at the indomitable visible through the station windows, then back at her. "Yes," he agreed. "I think we do. Please, come to the council chamber. We have many questions." As the humans walked through the station corridors, crowds of aliens watched from a safe distance. They whispered among themselves, trying to process what had just happened. An extinct species had returned. They had destroyed 3 warships without effort. And now they wanted to talk. What else did they want? What other surprises did they have waiting? And most importantly, what had humanity been doing for 300 years in the silence of isolation? The galaxy was about to find out. The council chamber had never been so full. Every seat was occupied and dozens more representatives stood along the walls. They had all come to hear what the humans had to say. Ambassador Kyungmi stood at the center of the chamber, calm and composed despite hundreds of alien eyes watching her every move. Commander Dae Hyeon stood beside her, a silent reminder of what humanity could do if threatened. Counselor Vrek called the session to order. "Ambassador Kyungmi, you have requested this audience. The council is ready to hear your statement." Kyungmi nodded her thanks. 300 years ago, humanity was a young species. We had just developed faster than light travel. We were excited to meet other intelligent life. We established embassies, signed trade agreements, and believed we had found our place among the stars. She paused, letting her words sink in. We were wrong. We were being watched, monitored, assessed, not as potential friends but as potential prey. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. "We discovered surveillance devices on our colony worlds," Kyungmi continued. "We intercepted communications discussing the best way to conquer Earth. We found fleet deployment orders being prepared by multiple species, all planning to invade human territory and divide our worlds among themselves." "That is a serious accusation," Counselor Vrek said quietly. "Do you have proof?" "I do," Kyungmi gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. They showed documents, communications, military orders, all dated from 3 centuries ago. All bearing the official seals of various galactic powers. The chamber erupted in shouting. Some counselors denied the authenticity of the documents. Others tried to justify them. A few looked genuinely shocked, unaware of what their predecessors had planned. "These documents are 300 years old," one counselor protested. "The governments that created them no longer exist. You cannot hold us responsible for ancient history." Kyungmi's expression hardened. "Ancient history? For you, perhaps. But Earth remembers. We remember the moment we realized the galaxy saw us as resources to be harvested, not equals to be respected. That memory shaped everything we've done since." She walked slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with various representatives. "Humanity made a choice that day. We could stay and fight a war we would certainly lose. Or we could disappear, vanish so completely that you would forget we ever existed. We chose to disappear." "Impossible," Admiral Tovin said from his position at the back of the chamber. "No species can hide an entire civilization for 3 centuries. We developed stealth technology you cannot imagine," Kyungmi replied. "We surrounded our solar system with barriers that made it invisible to your sensors. We sent out false signals suggesting Earth had been destroyed in a natural disaster. And we waited. We watched you forget about us. And while you forgot, we prepared." Dr. Hyeon, a human xenobiologist who had come with the delegation, stepped forward. She was older than Kyungmi, with gray hair and kind eyes. "We studied everything we could learn about galactic species. Your cultures, your technologies, your military capabilities. We had 300 years to learn your weaknesses. And to eliminate our own," Commander Dae Hyeon added. "Humanity was divided when we disappeared. Hundreds of nations all competing with each other. The threat of galactic invasion gave us something we had never had before, a common purpose. We unified completely. One government, one military, one goal, survival. A counselor from the Vex Collective spoke up. Even unified, you were one species against many. How could you possibly believe you would survive if we discovered you? Kyung-mi smiled slightly. Because we weren't preparing to survive a discovery. We were preparing to make sure discovery would be the last mistake you ever made. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Every species present understood the implication. Humanity had spent 3 centuries building weapons, planning strategies, running simulations. They had turned their entire civilization into a weapon aimed at the galaxy. The Indomitable is not our most powerful ship, Daehyun said calmly. It's not even close. It's just a scout vessel sent ahead to make contact. Our actual fleet is far more capable. How many ships do you have? Vrek asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Enough, was all Daehyun would say. Before anyone could press him further, new alarms began sounding. A communications officer rushed into the chamber, his face pale. Counselor Vrek, we have a situation. Warlord Kress has arrived in the system with a battle fleet. The chamber went silent. Warlord Kress was the supreme military commander of the Krill Empire. He commanded more ships than any other single individual in the galaxy. If he had come here, it meant war. Admiral Toven looked conflicted. Kress was his superior, but Toven had already seen what human weapons could do. He suspected that bringing more ships would not change the outcome. The view screens activated, showing the space around Nexus Station. Ships began appearing, dozens of them. Sleek Krill warships, each one a masterpiece of destructive engineering. They kept coming. 10 ships, 20, 40, the count stopped at 47 vessels, including 2 super dreadnoughts that dwarfed everything else in the system. A message appeared on all screens. Warlord Kress himself, resplendent in full ceremonial armor, stared out at the council with contempt. Nexus Station, this is Warlord Kress of the Krill Empire. I have been informed that humans are present at this station, making demands and threatening our forces. This will not stand. He pointed directly at the camera, his voice filled with absolute certainty. Humans, you will surrender immediately and submit to Krill authority. You will share all your technology and accept protectorate status under our empire. If you refuse, I will destroy your ship and hunt down every human in the galaxy. You have 1 hour to comply. In the council chamber, Ambassador Kyung-mi turned to Commander Daehyun. Commander, I believe now would be an appropriate time to call for reinforcements. Daehyun nodded and spoke into his wrist communicator. Indomitable to Earth Command. Authorization Daehyun 7 Alpha. Requesting fleet deployment to Nexus Station. Full strength. The response was immediate. Confirmed, Commander. Fleet deploying now. Estimated arrival, 30 seconds. Counselor Vrek heard those words and felt his heart sink. 30 seconds. Not 30 minutes. Not even 30 hours. 30 seconds. That meant the human fleet was already here, hiding in plain sight. Waiting for this exact moment, Warlord Kress heard it too. What fleet? He demanded. There is only one human ship in this system. My sensors show nothing else. Your sensors, Kyung-mi said quietly, are not good enough. And then the galaxy forgot to breathe for the second time in one day. Space rippled. Reality bent. And ships appeared. Human warships, uncloaking from stealth systems so advanced that they had been floating invisible among the Krill fleet the entire time. They had been there for hours, maybe days, and no one had detected them. The ships kept appearing. 5, 10, 15. They formed up around the Indomitable in perfect formation. Each one was larger than the Indomitable. Each one bristled with weapons that made the Krill arsenal look primitive. The count stopped at 17 ships. 17 human warships, each one capable of destroying Admiral Toven's entire original fleet single-handedly. And judging by their positions, they had surrounded Warlord Kress's fleet before uncloaking. The Krill were trapped. Warlord Kress's face showed shock for the first time in his long military career. How? How did you hide so many ships? We've had 300 years to practice hiding, Commander Daehyun replied. Did you think we would send one ship to a potentially hostile station without backup? Another human commander appeared on the communication channel. This one was older, with white hair and the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets for decades. Warlord Kress, I am Admiral Neri of the Terra United Home Fleet. The ships you see here are just our expeditionary force. Our main fleet remains at Earth. I suggest you reconsider your ultimatum. Kress looked at his tactical displays. His officers were feeding him numbers, running calculations. The results were clear. The Krill fleet was outgunned by a factor of at least 5 to 1. And that was assuming the humans did not have more ships hiding in stealth. For the first time in his life, Warlord Kress faced an enemy he could not defeat through force. He had two choices, retreat or die. The Krill Empire, Kress said slowly, does not surrender. We're not asking you to surrender, Kyung-mi interjected. We're asking you to talk. Sit down with us. Negotiate as equals. Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We just want to make sure no one tries to conquer us. Kress looked at her, then at the fleet surrounding his forces, then back at her. And if we refuse to negotiate? Admiral Nari answered that question. Then we will destroy your fleet, fortify this station, and begin systematic elimination of any species that threatens humanity. We would prefer not to do that. We would much rather be friends. But make no mistake, Warlord. We will not be victims again. The silence stretched. Every species in the galaxy was watching this confrontation through various means. Whatever happened next would shape galactic politics for centuries. Finally, Warlord Kress spoke. I will consider your proposal. The Krill fleet will stand down for now. Counselor Vrek let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. War had been Ave. The negotiations took place in a secured section of Nexus Station. Security was tight, with both human and alien guards patrolling the corridors. No one wanted another confrontation, not after how close they had come to war. Ambassador Kyung-mi sat at a long table across from representatives of 12 different species. Each one had their own demands, their own fears, their own agenda. Managing them all would be a delicate dance, but Kyung-mi had trained for this moment for 30 years. She was ready. Counselor Vrek opened the session. Ambassador, your people have made their military capability clear. Now we must discuss what comes next. What does humanity want? Recognition, Kyung-mi replied simply. We want Terra United to be acknowledged as a sovereign power with all the rights and protections that implies. We want clearly defined territorial boundaries that will not be violated. We want fair trade agreements. And most importantly, we want assurance that no species will ever again plot our destruction. Those seem like reasonable requests, Vrek said cautiously. But many here wonder what humanity will offer in return. Your technology is clearly superior to ours. Will you share it? Kyung-mi had expected this question. It was the obvious one. Every species in the galaxy wanted access to human weapons, human shields, human stealth technology. We will share some technology, yes. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, civilian applications, but our military technology will remain ours alone. I'm sure you understand why. An elder Altharian named Suk spoke up. She was ancient, even by their standards, and her voice carried the weight of centuries. I remember first contact with humans. It was I who welcomed your ambassador to Altharia all those years ago. Your people were kind then, hopeful. Tell me, Ambassador Kyung-mi, what happened to that hope? Kyung-mi met the elder's gaze. You happened to it, Elder Suk. Not you personally, perhaps, but your government, along with several others, began planning our conquest before we had even established our 5th colony. We found the surveillance devices. We intercepted the communications. We learned that too. The galaxy, we were nothing more than resources waiting to be claimed. Suk closed her eyes, and for a moment she looked even older. I suspected something was wrong when you vanished. I argued against the military assessment of your species. I was overruled. I'm sorry for what my people planned. Thank you, Kyung-mi said softly. That means more than you know. But apologies cannot undo 300 years of isolation. They cannot bring back the humanity we might have been if we had been allowed to grow naturally among the stars. We were changed by what you did. We became harder. More focused, less trusting, she paused, then continued. But we are not cruel. We don't seek revenge. We just want to make sure it never happens again. The negotiations continued for days. Representatives would argue for hours over single phrases in proposed treaties. Meanwhile, life on Nexus Station began to adapt to the presence of humans. June was one of the first civilian humans to arrive. He was young, barely 20 years old, and everything about the station fascinated him. He had never seen an alien before, except in videos. Now he walked among dozens of different species. His eyes wide with wonder. In the station's market district, June stopped at a food vendor run by a species called the Melkans. They were small, furry creatures with 6 limbs and gentle dispositions. The vendor looked at June nervously. "Hello," June said in careful galactic standard. "What do you sell?" The Melkan relaxed slightly at his polite tone. "Fruit from my homeworld, very sweet." "You want to try?" June nodded eagerly. The Melkan cut a piece of purple fruit and offered it. June took a cautious bite and his face lit up. "This is delicious. How much?" They haggled briefly over the price, and June bought 3 pieces of fruit. As he walked away, the Melkan watched him go with a thoughtful expression. The human had been polite, friendly, not at all like the terrifying warriors who had arrived on warships. Similar interactions were happening all over the station. Dr. Haiyan had set up a small medical clinic where she offered free health scans to any species who wanted them. Human medical technology was advanced enough to detect diseases that alien doctors missed completely. Word spread quickly, and soon there was a line outside her clinic. Yuna, the chief engineer from the Indomitable, allowed a group of alien engineers to tour parts of her ship. Not the weapon systems or the stealth generators, but the basic engineering spaces. The aliens were amazed by what they saw. Human fusion reactors were half the size of galactic equivalents but produced twice the power. Their life support systems could recycle air and water with near-perfect efficiency. "How did you achieve this?" one engineer asked in amazement. Yuna smiled. 300 years of focused development. When your entire species is working toward the same goal, you can accomplish remarkable things. But not everyone was happy about humanity's return. In a dark corner of the station, a secret meeting was taking place. Representatives from several species had gathered, all of them sharing one thing in common. They refused to accept human dominance. The leader of this group was a Krill officer named Torvak. He had served under Warlord Kress for decades and believed strongly in Krill superiority. "The humans make us look weak," he hissed. "We cannot allow this to stand. What do you propose?" asked a Vex representative. "Their military is clearly superior." "Then we do not fight them militarily," Torvak replied. "We destroy them politically. We assassinate their ambassador and frame another species for the murder. The humans will retaliate against the wrong target. The galaxy will turn against them. And in the chaos we can destroy them." The others murmured agreement. It was a good plan. Simple, effective, and difficult to trace back to them. But they had made a critical mistake. They assumed human intelligence capabilities were equivalent to galactic standards. They were wrong. Commander Taijin led a special operations team of 6 humans. They had been monitoring the conspirators for 2 days, ever since human sensors detected unusual communication patterns. Taijin was younger than Commander Daehyun, but just as capable. He specialized in covert operations. His team had placed listening devices throughout the conspirators' meeting place. They had visual surveillance. They knew every detail of the planned assassination. And now they waited for the conspirators to make their move. The attack was planned for the next day, during a public ceremony where Ambassador Kyungmi would officially sign the first treaty between Terra United and the Altharian Commonwealth. Security would be heavy, but the conspirators had found a weakness. Or so they thought the day of the ceremony arrived. Hundreds of aliens and humans gathered in the main plaza of Nexus Station. Ambassador Kyungmi stood on a raised platform alongside Elder Suk. The treaty was presented, and both representatives prepared to sign. In the crowd, Torvik and 3 other conspirators moved into position. They carried weapons that had been smuggled onto the station piece by piece over several days. At Torvak's signal, they would open fire. Kyungmi would die, Suk would die, and the blame would fall on a third species that the conspirators had carefully framed. Torvak raised his hand to give the signal. But before he could complete the gesture, he felt something cold and hard press against the back of his head. "Don't move," Commander Taijin whispered in Torvak's ear. Around them, the other 3 conspirators were also being quietly subdued by human special forces. None of the civilians in the crowd even noticed. Torvak was dragged away to a holding cell. His co-conspirators went with him. The ceremony continued without interruption. Later, in a private meeting, Kyungmi confronted Warlord Kress with evidence of the conspiracy, recordings of the meetings, visual proof of the weapons being smuggled, everything. Kress looked at the evidence and felt something he rarely experienced: shame. "These fools do not represent the Krill Empire, I know," Kyungmi said. "That's why I'm giving you the opportunity to handle this internally. Prosecute them under your own laws. Show the galaxy that the Krill Empire does not support terrorism." Kress stared at her. "You would trust me to administer justice?" "I'm giving you the chance to earn that trust," Kyungmi replied. "What you do with it is up to you." It was a calculated risk, but it paid off. Kress held a public trial. The conspirators were found guilty and sentenced under Krill law. More importantly, Kress publicly denounced their actions and reaffirmed his commitment to peace with humanity. The incident actually strengthened human credibility. They had detected a threat, stopped it without violence, and given their former enemies the chance to do the right thing. It was the kind of restrained power that impressed even the most skeptical species. Counselor Vrek watched all of this and marveled. The humans could have simply killed the conspirators. No one would have blamed them. Instead, they had shown mercy and wisdom. They were demonstrating that their strength came not just from weapons, but from character. The negotiations continued. Slowly, carefully, the framework of a new galactic order began to take shape. Humanity would have recognized territory. They would participate in the Galactic Council. Trade agreements were established. Defense pacts were proposed. It was not perfect. There were still species who resented humanity's sudden rise to power. There were still disagreements over details. But for the first time in 300 years, humanity was part of the galactic. 6 months after the Indomitable First appeared at Nexus Station, the galaxy looked very different. The Treaty of Nexus had been signed by 18 species. Human ships now patrolled recognized Terra United territory. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were opening again. And slowly, carefully, humanity was finding its place among the stars. Historian Borom sat in her quarters aboard Nexus Station, reviewing months of recordings. It was her job to document these historic events for future generations. She had interviewed dozens of people, both human and alien, gathering their perspectives on humanity's return. "They scared us at first," one Altharian merchant told her. "The weapons, the ships, the way they appeared from nowhere. But then we started doing business with them. They're fair traders, honest, they keep their word. That matters." A Krill soldier had a different perspective. "I fought in 3 wars. I thought I knew what power looked like. But the humans showed me I was wrong. Real power isn't just about having the biggest guns. It's about knowing when not to use them." Borom compiled all these interviews into a comprehensive historical record. Future generations would know exactly how this new age began. How one warship changed everything. Meanwhile, Admiral Nari stood on the bridge of her flagship, the massive carrier Sovereign. Around her, the full strength of Terra United's home fleet had finally arrived in the Nexus sector. 237 warships, representing the full military might of humanity. The sight of them all together was breathtaking and terrifying. Every species with sensors capable of detecting them watched nervously. This was not an expeditionary force. This was an armada that could conquer half the galaxy if it chose to, but it did not choose to. Instead, Admiral Nari issued orders for joint training exercises with the Altharian Commonwealth Fleet. Human ships and Altharian ships would practice coordination, learn each other's tactics, and build mutual trust through shared effort. The first exercise did not go smoothly. The Altharians were used to different communication protocols. Their ships moved differently than human vessels. There were near collisions and moments of confusion. But both sides persisted, learning from each mistake. By the third exercise, they were moving together like a single unified fleet. The coordination was not perfect, but it was improving. And the symbolism was powerful. Former potential enemies were now training to fight together. Commander Dae-Hyeon watched one of these exercises from the Indomitable's bridge. Lieutenant Hannah stood beside him, monitoring the tactical displays. "Commander," she said, "I never thought I'd see the day when human ships flew in formation with aliens." "Neither did I," Dae-Hyeon admitted. "But I'm glad we did. This is what we should have had 300 years ago. Partnership instead of suspicion." Hannah nodded. "Do you think it will last?" "The peace, I mean?" Dae-Hyeon considered the question carefully. "I think it will last as long as both sides remember what war costs. As long as they remember that cooperation benefits everyone more than conflict." Elsewhere on Nexus Station, a different kind of cooperation was taking shape. In a massive engineering bay, humans and aliens worked side by side on something unprecedented, a hybrid spacecraft. Pilot Donga stood beside the prototype, running his hands along its hull with reverence. The ship combined human defensive technology with Altharian propulsion systems and Nokan sensor arrays. It was a symbol of what different species could achieve together. "She's beautiful," Donga said to the chief Altharian engineer, a young female named Reza. "She is ours," Reza replied with pride. "Not human. Not Altharian. Something new. Something better." The prototype was named Unity, and its successful test flight 3 weeks later was broadcast across the galaxy. Millions watched as the hybrid vessel performed maneuvers impossible for traditional designs. It combined the best of multiple technologies into something greater than the sum of its parts. After the test flight, Dongha and Reza held a joint press conference. Questions came from reporters representing dozens of species. "Does this mean humans will share their military technology?" one reporter asked. "No," Donga answered firmly. "Unity is a civilian vessel. The technology sharing agreement covers only non-military applications. But that still leaves room for incredible innovation." "Will there be more joint projects?" another reporter asked. Reza answered this one. "Absolutely. We're already planning a medical research station to be staffed by scientists from 6 different species. Humans have amazing medical technology, but other species have knowledge in areas where humans are still learning. Together we can cure diseases that none of us could solve alone." The press conference ended on a hopeful note. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's return did not mean the end of other species' relevance. It meant the beginning of genuine cooperation, but not everyone was convinced. In a secure chamber deep within Krill space, military commanders reviewed the situation with growing concern. "The humans grow stronger every day," one general argued. "They make allies. They build influence. Soon they will be too powerful to stop." Warlord Kress, who had been silent during most of the meeting, finally spoke. "And what would you have us do? Attack them? We've seen what their fleet can do. Any attack would be suicide. Then we do nothing?" the general demanded. "No," Kress said thoughtfully. "We adapt. The galaxy is changing. Species who refuse to change with it will be left behind. The Krill Empire will not be left behind." He stood and addressed the entire assembly. "I am ordering a full review of our military doctrine. We will study human tactics. We will improve our own technology. And we will seek alliance with them if possible. Not because we are weak, but because we are smart enough to recognize strength when we see it." There was grumbling, but no open opposition. Kress had made his decision, and his word was law in the Krill Empire, back at Nexus Station. Ambassador Kyung-mi met privately with Elder Suk. The two had developed genuine respect for each other over the months of negotiation. You've done well, Suk told her. Better than I expected. You've turned fear into cooperation. Not everywhere, Kyung-mi replied honestly. Some species still see us as a threat. Some will always see us that way. True, Suk agreed. But you've given the reasonable ones a chance to do the right thing. That's all anyone can do. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out at the stars through Suk's window. Can I ask you something? Kyung-mi said. In your long life, have you seen the galaxy change this dramatically before? Suk thought about it. Once, when the Krill first developed their empire, it reshaped galactic politics completely. But that change came through conquest. This change is coming through? What would you call it? Demonstrated capability combined with restraint? We call it strength through peace, Kyung-mi said. The idea that the strongest nation is the one that doesn't need to prove it through violence. A lovely philosophy, Suk said. Let's hope the galaxy is ready for it. Months turned into a year. The anniversary of humanity's return was marked with a celebration at Nexus Station. Representatives from 30 species attended, including several who had not signed the original treaty but were now reconsidering. Commander Daehyun gave a speech that was broadcast across known space. 1 year ago, the Indomitable arrived at this station. We came in peace, though we were prepared for war. We came seeking partnership, though we expected hostility. And what we found was a galaxy willing to give us a chance. He paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. Humanity will never forget the 300 years we spent in isolation. We will never forget why we had to hide. But we also will not be defined by that past. We choose to move forward. We choose to build rather than destroy. We choose cooperation over domination. The speech was well received. Even species that still mistrusted humanity appreciated the sentiment. Later that evening, Daehyun stood in the Indomitable's observation deck, watching Nexus Station through the window. Lieutenant Hannah found him there. Nostalgic, Commander? She asked. A little, he admitted. This is where it all started. One ship, arriving at a hostile station, changing the galaxy. We didn't change it alone, Hannah pointed out. The Altharians chose to trust us. Elder Suk chose wisdom over fear. Even Warlord Crest chose adaptation over conflict. We showed them what we could do, but they chose how to respond. Daehyun smiled. When did you become so philosophical, Lieutenant? I learned from the best. Sir, they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The Indomitable would be departing soon, heading back to Earth with news of everything that had been accomplished. New crews would rotate in. The mission would continue, but this moment, this victory, belonged to them. They had been the ones who took the first step. They had shown the galaxy that humanity could not be ignored, should not be threatened, and might just be the ally everyone needed. As the Indomitable prepared for departure, Counselor Vrek sent a final message to Commander Daehyun. Thank you, the message said simply, for giving us a chance to be better than we were. The galaxy needed to remember that strength without wisdom is just violence. You reminded us. Daehyun read the message and felt something he had not expected. Hope. Real hope. Not just for humanity, but for all the species in the galaxy. The Indomitable entered Slipstream, heading home. Behind them, Nexus Station continued its work.